Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezah Hashem on the bottom of Daf Ches Amud Beis, the last 4 lines. Before we get into the Gemara, the previous Gemara that we had brought brings a Braisa saying that a person can say Kriya Shema before the Amud HaShachar and after the Amud HaShachar. And Biyotze Kriya Shel Arvis before the Amud HaShachar and Biyotze Kriya Shel Shacharis after the Amud HaShachar. Now the Gemara brings a Braisa is slightly different. Says the Gemara, Ika de Masni Loho de Rav Acha Bar Chanina Aho. You can say that Rav Acha Bar Chanina taught on the following Braisa. Says the Braisa, De Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Oimer, Mishum Rabbi Akiva, in the name of Rabbi Akiva. Pe'omim she'odam karei kriya shema shtei pe'omim bayom. Sometimes a person can say Kriya Shema twice during the day. Achas koidem hanetz hachamo, ve'achas la'achar netz hachamo. One right before the netz hachamo, right before you can see on the horizon the sun coming up, and one right after the netz hachamo, right after the netz, the sun begins coming up. Ve'yoytze b'yen yodei chovaso achas shel yom ve'achas shel laila. And you can fulfill your obligation of Kriya Shema shel Arvis as well as your obligation of Kriya Shema shel Shacharis. Says the Gemara, Hagufa Kasha. This is difficult itself. Because Amris, you said, you said that a person sometimes can fulfill his obligation of saying Kriya Shema twice during the day. Alma, obviously, you're calling before the Nates day. And afterwards you say you can fulfill your obligation of Kriya Shema once during the day and once at night. The Kriya Shema shel Arvis and the Kriya Shema shel Shacharis. Obviously to fulfill your mitzvah of Kriya Shema shel Arvis before the Netz HaChama, it must be at night. So why did you call it day? Says the Gemara, really it is considered to be during the day. However, the high the korolei, but over here, which we called it night, in regards to Kriya Shema shel Arvis, because the Ika inshi de ganu be'ahi shaitza, because at that time people are lying down still, and therefore you can feel the uveshoch becha while a person is still lying down, and say the mitzvah of Kriya Shema shel Arvis and be yotzei with that kriya. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Acha Rabbi Chanina, Omar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Halacha ki Rabbi Shimon. The halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, She'omar Mishum Rabbi Akiva. He just said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, the previous brisa that we just brought, that says that a person can be Yotzei Kriya Shema shel Arvis before the Netz HaChama, and he can be Yotzei the Kriya Shema shel Shacharis after the Netz HaChama. Now the Gemara brings a caveat. And that is so long as a person doesn't say the tefillah, the bracha of hashkivenu. Because if a person says hashkivenu, it implies that he's going to be laying down. If we're talking samuch, right before the Netz HaChama, people don't begin lying down. They're not still lying down at that point, going to lie down then. They're actually at the end of the lying down. And therefore you cannot say hashkivenu, however. Says the Gemara, Ki also Rabbi Yitzchok Bar Yosef Amar Ho de Rabbi Acha Rabbi Chanina. He said this quotation, this halach in the name of Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina that we just said in the name of Yoshua ben Levi. La befeirosh itmar, it wasn't stated explicitly, Ela michlala itmar, but rather it was implied by the following Maaseh. Says the Gemara to explain. Dahu zuga de Rabbanon. There was a pair of chachamim, of students, the ishtaker behelulo de Brei Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. They became inebriated at the chasana of the son of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Also lekamei Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, and they came before Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi because they were sleeping already after the Amud HaShachar. So they came to him after the Amud HaShachar, and they asked him the following question. Can we still say Kriya Shema shel Arvis? Omar, he said in response, Kedai hu Rabbi Shimon lismar chalo b'shas hadechak. You can rely on Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, which we said now in the name of Rabbi Akiva, b'shas hadechak, to say Kriya Shema shel Arvis even after the Amud HaShachar, before the Neitz HaChamo. Says the Gemara weiter, quoting our Mishnah, Maise Shebo Bonov. The Maisa that the Mishnah brings, that the children of Gamliel came back in the middle of the night after Chatzos, but before Amud HaShachar, and asked, what should we do? Can we still say Kriya Shema Shel Arvis? V'ad hashta lo shmir luhud ho de Rabbi Gamliel. Until now, they didn't know the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel that you can still say it until Amud HaShachar. These are the children of Rabbi Gamliel. So why did they come and ask him that question? Can we still say Kriya Shema now, that is after Chatzos and before Amud HaShachar? They know the shita of their father, Rabbi Gamliel, that you can say Kriya Shema until Amud HaShachar. Says the Gemara, Hochi ka'amrei le Rabbanan. This is what the Rabbanan, meaning the children of Gamliel, said to him. Pligi ilavoch v'yochid rabim halacha karabim. Were the Chachamim arguing on you? And when there's a machlok between the Yachid and the Rabbim, the halacha is like the Rabbim, therefore the halacha is like the Chachamim. We can only say Kriya Shema until Chatzos. Or Dilma Rabbanan Kavasach Svirulahu. Or maybe the Chachamim hold like you. V'hai de ka'amrei ad Chatzos k'dei laharchik adam min ha'aveiro. And that which they said you can only say Kriya Shema until Chatzos is only to then distance a person from not saying Kriya Shema in its time and being mevato mitzvahs aseh midiaraisa. Omar lohu rabbanon kavasi svir lohu. He responded to his children, the Rabbanan, they really hold like me. V'chayovim atem. And you're obligated to say Kriya Shel Arvis now. V'hai de ka'amrei ad Chatzos. And that which they said until Chatzos was kedei laharchik adam min aveiro, in order to distance a person from making aveiro, which we call a siyog, a geder, as not to then make a mistake and fall asleep and then be mevatel the mitzvahs aseh of Kriya Shema bizmanoi. Then the Gemara brings a quotation again from the Mishnah, V'lo zu bilvad amru ela v'chulei. This is what Rabbi Gamliel's response to his children are. Not only did they say this, but also the following. In other places, when they say until Chatzos, they really mean you can still fulfill the mitzvah until Amud HaShachar. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Gamliel Mika Amar ad Chatzos, Diktani v'lo zu bilvad amru. Did Rabbi Gamliel himself say ad Chatzos, that it's taught not only this mashma that he himself was saying it? No. Hochika amarlu. This is really what he meant to say to them. This is what he was saying. Rabbi Gamliel livnei. Afilu l'Rabbanon. Even the Rabbanon who say ad Chatzos, the ka'amrei ad Chatzos, mitzvah asher yala Amud HaShachar. V'hai de ko amrei ad Chatzos. Again, that which they said until Chatzos doesn't mean only until Chatzos. They said so kedei laharchik adam min aver, to make a siyog and prevent people from then being mevatel, in this case, a mitzvah of Kriya Shema Shel Arvis. The Gemara brings the example, Hekter Chalovim V'chulei. That was an example. And another example we brought is that you cannot eat, or you can rather eat, the carbon, if it's, let's say, a carbon toida, we said, which has a day and a night. That night means all the way until the next morning, until Amud HaShachar. So the Gemara says, V'ilu achilas psochim lo katani, and yet achilas psochim, eating of the carbon Pesach, wasn't taught as an example here in the Mishnah. V'aminhi frek the Gemara. It says in a brayse, Kriya Shema Arvis v'halel b'leil psochim v'achilas Pesach mitzvosin asher Amud HaShachar. There brings Kriya Shema, but it also brings other examples. It brings the halal of Leil Pesach and Achilas Pesach. So why don't we bring those examples? It could have been good enough to bring Achilas Pesach, and halal would have been included, but why didn't it bring Achilas Pesach as one of the examples in our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Amrav Yosef lo kasha. It's not difficult because a machloek is tanoim. Ho de Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, ho Rabbi Akiva. It's a machlokes between Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva. Until when can you eat the carbon Pesach? The Tanya, as we learn in the following brayso, v'ochlu es habosar balayla hazeh. The pasuk says, and they ate the basar of the korban pesach and that night. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah Omer Ne'emar kan balayla hazeh. It says in this verse that we just quoted, halayla hazeh, v'ne'emar lahalon, and it says in another verse in regards to the makas bechoros v'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim balayla hazeh. It says halayla hazeh also. Ma lahalon ad chatzois, or more accurate, ma lahalan bechatzois afkan bechatzois. Just like the makas bechoros was bechatzois, so too over here the korban pesach can only be eaten until chatzois, at chatzois, until chatzois. Omar le Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, "Vehaloi kvar nemar bechipozon." Rabbi Akiva says, but it says in regards to eating the korban pesach, bechipozon, it should be eaten hurriedly, bechipozon, which means ad shas chipozon, the time of chipozon, which is in the morning. Imkein, if so, ma tamu loymar balayla. Why does it say balayla according to Rabbi Akiva? Yacha yehenecha kikodshim bayom, because I might think that you can eat it just like kodshim can be eaten during the day. Tamu loymar balayla. That's why it says balayla. Only at night can you eat the korban pesach, not during the day as other korbanos. Balayla hu necha v'lo bayom. Says the Gemara, Bishlama l'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah the Isla Gzeira Shava, who makes the Gzeira Shava of halayla hazeh. It's trich lemichtav le hazeh. That's why it has to say hazeh. Elo l'Rabbi Akiva, hi hazeh my avile. But according to Rabbi Akiva, the word hazeh, what does he do with the word hazeh? He explained out laila, but hazeh, what is that for? Says the Gemara, L'me'ute laila acherhu. It comes to exclude a different night. L'me'ute laila acherhu de'osa comes to exclude a different night. Meaning, you might think you can eat the korban pesach 2 nights, and not just 1 night. The Gemara comes to explain now. I might have thought, Hoyol upesach kochim kalim, v'shlomim kochim kalim. Just like Shlomim is Kochim Kalim, so Korban Pesach is also Kochim Kalim. Ma Shlomim ne'echolim l'shnei yomim v'layla echod, just as Korban Shlomim is eaten 2 days and a night. A Pesach ne'echal shtei laylos b'mokom beis yomim. Then I would think that a Korban Pesach can be eaten 2 nights instead of 2 days, because since the Shlom is eaten during the day, so it has 2 days and a night. But Korban Pesach, which is only eaten at night, it's 2 nights in a day. I might think to learn from a Korban Shlomim. V'yeh necha lebeis leilos v'yom echad. Kamash malan b'layla hazeh. And this night, b'layla hazeh hu necha v'eino necha b'layla acher. Only this night can a person eat the Korban Pesach, that very first night. There's no such thing as eating Korban Pesach in a second night. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, what does he learn it from? Miloisa suru, loso siru. Ad boiker nafka. He learns from the pasuk that says you should not leave over the meat of the korban pesach until the morning. Rabbi Akiva, imei hasam, if I had from that pasuk to learn from, hava amina, I might think to say, my boiker sheni. It means the second morning. Rabbi Elazar amar loch, kol boiker rishon. Every time it says boiker, it means that first boiker, not 2 boikers. Says the Gemara, you should know this machlokis that we have between Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva is also the same machlokis between 2 other Tanoim. V'hani Tanoi kehani Tanoi. The Tanya, for it says in the Brisa, brings a posuk, Shom tizbach es ha-pesach ba'erev, keboy ha-shemesh moyed tzeischa mi-Mitzrayim. And now the Tanoim argue about how to read this pasuk. Rabbi Eliezer Omer ba'erev, the first part of the pasuk when it says ba'erev, atazoveach, you are to then slaughter the korban pesach, which is ben arbayim. Kevoy hashemesh ata oichel. When it says kevoy hashemesh, in the next words of the pasuk, it says means you shall eat. Umoitzeischa mimitzrayim ata saref. And when it says the next words, Umoitzeischa mimitzrayim, you shall burn. So therefore it implies that a person is able to then eat the korban Pesach only until Chatzos. Because Rabbi Yeshua Omer, in contrast, he learns the first two words of the psukim the same way, but the last part, he argues, Ba'erev ata zoveach. You're right. In the Erev ben Arbaim, you need to be in zoveach, the korban Pesach. Kivoy hashemesh ata oichel. When it comes to Tzeis HaKochavim, then that night you are to eat. But ve'ad mosai ata oichel. Until when can you still eat? Until the next morning when we left Mitzrayim, which is Amud Hashachar. So therefore we see that that's the machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva as well. Going back to what we said before, that regards to B'chipozon, Rabbi Akiva said Chipozon refers to the morning. So Gemara now comes back to explain this. Everybody agrees when Klal Yisrael were redeemed from Mitzrayim, lo nagolu ela ba'erev. It was in the middle of the night. Certainly, when Paro came and redeemed and said, and freed rather everybody and said, you are now free to go out. However, when they left, lo yatsu ela bayom. They only left during the day. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, mimocharas haPesach yatsu b'nei Yisrael biyad Ramo. The next day after the korban Pesach, which is now the 15th, did they leave Mitzrayim biyad Ramo? Alma nechleku. So then, what are they arguing? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva. Al shas chipozon. On Shas Chipozon, what's considered to be Chipozon that the pasuk refers to of eating the korban Pesach b'Chipozon? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah sovar ma Chipozon the Mitzrayim. What is Chipozon? Referring to the Chipozon of Mitzrayim, which is of course that night, the night of Makas Bechoros, and therefore until Chatzos can a person eat the korban Pesach. That's how Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah learns. Rabbi Akiva said, "My chipozon." What's the kavana of chipozon? Chipozon di Yisrael refers to the chipozon of Klal Yisrael when they were leaving the next morning. That means Amud Hashachar. Now the Gemara brings a brayse, Tanya Nami Hochi, a brayse that also says like this: Hotziacha Hashem Elokecha Mitzrayim Laila. Hashem took you out of Mitzrayim at night. V'chiba Laila Yatsu. Did they really go out at night? Really, they only left actually the next day. On the next day, after the korban Pesach, on the 15th, did they leave Mimitzrayim? Rather, this comes to teach us the Geula began at night. And that's again what we said before, that everybody, whether it's Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, agree that the Gula started at night. What is the machlokes between them? The machlokes between is actually what is considered to be chipozon. Is it at night, meaning at Chatzos, the chipozon of the Mitzrayim, or is it the next morning, the chipozon of Klal Yisrael when they left Mitzrayim?